Guys, check this out. So the World Cup is coming to Kansas City in June 2026. And with that, a lot of the local restaurants have decided they're going to add a 20% gratuity to every order. And the reason? They're expecting a lot of out-of-country guests that are not accustomed to our tipping culture. So how did we get here? Well, it's the usual suspects. Greedy business owners and a corrupt government willing to back them. See, tipping in the United States actually came from Europe. It started spreading in the 1800s after wealthy Americans traveled to Europe and brought the customs back with them. In Europe, the wealthy would tip servants and staff as a sign of status and wealth. It brought the practice back to America, and many people hated it. They would actually compare tipping to bribery because workers were forced to perform for wages instead of simply being paid properly by employers. But after the Civil War, tipping exploded in the United States for a very specific reason. America had thousands of newly freed former slaves, Black Americans, entering the workforce, especially in low-paying service industries like hotels, restaurants, railroads, and the business owners did not want to pay them real wages. So they came up with a system where they technically hired workers, but expected customers to pay them instead. Sound familiar? Railroad companies were some of the worst offenders. Pullman porters, who were mostly former slaves, survived mostly entirely on tips, working long, exhausting hours, serving wealthy passengers on trains. Restaurants and hotels adopted the same model. For employers, it was perfect. No payroll cost, high profits. Workers blamed customers instead of management when they struggled financially. And because service workers relied on pleasing customers for survival, business owners got an obedient workforce, terrified of upsetting anybody. That business model worked so well for employers that tipping spread rapidly through the United States. By the 1900s, public backlash got so bad that several states tried banning tipping entirely. States like Washington, Arkansas, Mississippi, and Tennessee passed anti-tipping laws between 1909 and 1915. The argument was simple. If businesses could not afford to pay workers, then the business model itself was broken. But restaurant owners, hotel industries, and railroad companies fought hard against those laws because tipping saved them enormous amounts of money. Eventually, most tipping laws were either repealed or just simply stopped being enforced. Then came the Fair Labor Standards Act of 1938. Under President Franklin D. Roosevelt, this law created the federal minimum wage. Sounds great, right? Except there was a catch. Many service workers, especially restaurant and hospitality workers, were excluded or treated differently under labor protection. Then in 1966, Congress formally expanded the tip credit system into federal law. That meant employers could legally pay tipped employees under minimum wage as long as customers' tips supposedly made up the difference. And to this day, the federal tipped minimum wage is only $2.13 an hour. $2.13. The government literally created a legal framework where businesses could shift payroll responsibility onto customers. And over time, Americans were trained to see this as normal. Now look where we are today. Restaurants expect tips, bars expect tips, delivery drivers expect tips, coffee shops, tablet screens spin around asking for tips before service even happens. Customers are constantly guilt-tripped into covering wages that businesses should have been paying in the first place. Meanwhile, when workers complain, workers blame the customers blame the workers, and business owners sit quietly in the background benefiting from the entire setup. That's the genius of the system. It redirects frustration away from the people designing it. And to be clear, this is not the fault of the service workers. Most workers are trying to survive inside of a system they did not create. The real question is, why has one of the wealthiest countries in the world normalized paying workers less than minimum wage and expecting normal customers to close the gap? Because once you learn the history of tipping in America, you realize this was never about being polite. It became a business model. And the craziest thing is, guys, we got the idea of tipping from the Europeans, and now we're trying to trick them into fitting into our tip culture. Because as Americans, we took it way too far, we got greedy, and we found a way to benefit the wealthy and screw the workers and the consumers at the same time and make us fight about it instead of fighting them. And honestly, the American system was built on the slavery mindset and not just against former slaves. I'm talking about the mindset of paying people barely enough to keep them alive and have them work for you for close to nothing. It happened during the very first settlers of the colonies. It happened during slavery. It happened post-slavery with former slaves. It happened prior to unions in the coal mines. It's happened in every step along the way, and it's still happening now, where they want to pay just barely enough to keep people alive and think that you should be grateful for that. They just never got away from that mindset, and we have to get them out of that mindset. We have to change the culture. We have to change the system. It's the only way, guys. And we have to get away from this crazy tip culture and hold the business owners responsible for paying wages, because nobody does this stupid shit. Just America.